Hello, everyone. You're watching the blueandgold.com recruiting live show with none other than Mike Singer. He does such an amazing job covering Notre Dame recruiting. I'm Greg Ladke. We're here on Thursday night. Thank you for joining us. Mike, let's start off with some news right off the bat. Major Everhart, he's a wide receiver target out of Texas, the Amarillo area. He committed to TCU this week. So where do things now stand with the Notre Dame receiver board?
Yeah, and to start, Greg, I mean, as far as Everhart picking TCU, not a big surprise. I had been saying that. Look, if this kid is, um, you know, gonna leave the state of Texas, it's for Notre Dame. But that was a big if. Like,
Yeah,
will he leave Texas? His official visits over the summer were TCU, Baylor, Texas Tech. Like, it was very clear, like it was going to be Texas, and then the Longhorns were, very much, sniffing around in the recruitment, and were interested. So, not a big shock again to see Major Everhart pick TCU, but I also can't say, well, Notre Dame didn't want him anyway, Greg. Like, no, Notre Dame wanted him. Like, he was a take. So it's a sting that he did pick TCU. Notre Dame really liked his skill set. Now, where does Notre Dame go from here? Um, I I asked a source this actually this week, Greg, and I was told holding on to Amorion Walker is the number one
yeah,
priority. Like, I think Notre Dame in a perfect world gets to four receivers in this class, especially with the numbers right now. But you know, again, the top priority is keeping this young man that you see on the screen for
right.
those watching YouTube. Like, he's been committed to Notre Dame since March. Really likes the Fighting Irish. Had a great official visit in June. I was told by sources that Notre Dame really put their arms around Walker and his family during that weekend and showed him a ton of love, and he had a great experience on campus. But as time went on, took a visit to Michigan, camped at Alabama and LSU, and got his scholarship offers. Other schools have just not slowed down. He's visited Alabama twice at this point. He's visited Michigan twice. He's only been to Notre Dame once, Greg. So Notre Dame,
Right.
um, I think if you're the Fighting Irish, you basically treat him as an uncommitted recruit, because Marion Walker is, again, he's visited other schools more than your own. So Notre Dame's working hard on him. Again, it's key for the Irish to hold on to him. But if he does go elsewhere, it's also not the end of the world. But you need to see the Irish, rebound well, and they do have players that they are interested in, have been talking with. Other receiver options just haven't quite offered yet. So but again, that's the goal. Hold on to Amarion Walker.
And just to clarify, we think it's going to be three wide receivers in the class, right? And they are pursuing Major Everhart because of the maybe uncertainty with the Marion Walker. Or is there a door open for maybe four?
No, absolutely, yeah. No, they would. I think they would take a fourth. Yeah.
Okay.
My understanding was, of course, you have C.J. Williams and Tobias Merriweather committed
Yeah, here's CJ Williams
already.
film.
Yep, there's C.J. Williams. Love this prospect. Look at some junior year film here. They would love to have, of course, again, Williams and Merriweather hold on to Walker and land Everhart. That was the plan, was to get to four. It's more of a three minimum, is my understanding. So yeah, Notre Dame, they're I could see them offering some new guys at the receiver position before it's all said and done.
Yeah, and you don't want to lose sight of the fact of the guys they already have committed. Even aside from Marion Walker, I mean, just tell me a little bit more about the C.J. Williams Tobias Merriweather combination. Notre Dame going out to the West Coast, and both those guys are impressive, and they complement seemingly right with their skill
Oh
sets. They
oh,
complement
yeah.
well.
Oh yeah, very. I mean, you see here, look at Williams in the slot, the seam. He's playing to the boundary here. You can play out to. He really can play anywhere. He is the number 45 player in the country, number 6 wide receiver, and he doesn't have like that freakish. Go up and moss anybody kind of athleticism like a Julio Jones or an AJ Green, like that type of wide receiver. But I mean, you look at this comeback route there. He is just a technician as a route runner. He
Yep.
is an elite possession receiver. He's going to be incredible for the locker room. Like, he is a perfect Notre Dame fit, on and off the field, in my opinion. He's a big time player. In Merriweather, who rivals ranks as the number 160 overall
Here he
player,
is.
number 19 receiver in the country. Yep. He's got that just burst. Like, he's been playing exceptionally well as a senior. Um, in the special teams game, you see him here. As a corner, he's looked really good. He's got a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah, he could play
interceptions.
defense.
Yeah, a couple of interceptions returned for scores. Electric with the ball in his hands. Special teams, receiver, corner. So I like him. He could play boundary or field. You got CJ Williams in the slot. Of course, again, Williams could play really anywhere, boundary, field, slot. Like, these guys are very versatile. I mean, when you look like a few months ago, if you would ask Dell Alexander, like, hey, Dell, like, who are your top receiver guys? Like, who do you want most on the board? I think his answer would have been CJ Williams and Tobias Merriweather.
Yeah.
So he got his two top guys. And I mean, to be honest, Greg, I mean, when Amarion Walker committed, most of Notre Dame fans were like, why are we getting kids with Alabama and LSU offers, in the South? Well, now that kid does have them. So receiver recruiting, for all the criticism Dell Alexander gets, I mean, it's been pretty good.
Yeah, I think this is an awesome combination. I was out at the Los Angeles Rivals camp where CJ Williams was part of that event, and he struck me as like a mix between Raymond McKnight and, I don't want to say Michael Floyd from a skill standpoint, but Notre Dame fans are going to really, he'll remind them of Michael Floyd because of how strong he is catching the ball, and like just from a posture standpoint and how he runs, he's like a 1 or 2 inch shorter version of him. Yeah, those guys. There's just so much to be excited about with those two. Mike, first off, before we move on to the next, I just want to ask our viewers, subscribe to our channel, like this video. We're going to be doing this all the time. We've said on previous YouTube broadcast over last week that we're going to get out on the road and hit some recruiting. So we're going to have a lot of fresh video too and fresh topics. So let's move on to this past weekend, Mike. A big weekend, obviously, on campus. And we talked in the last show about how a loss, really, don't worry about that as far as the status with recruits. But an amazing group of 2023 players, particularly on defense. What's your review?
Yeah, I want to mention real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Xavier Bradshaw for 2022 receivers. David Knight says, where the heck is Bradshaw?
Yeah.
Notre Dame still in contact with him. So wanted to mention that, the talented playmaker from Virginia. But I mean, the recruiting list of players who visited Notre Dame for that Cincinnati weekend is just ridiculous. I mean, 5-star Alex Sonny Styles, top 100 defensive lineman Luke Montgomery, Drake Bowen, borderline 5-star linebacker in 2023, Samuel Mpemba. Getting a look at Bowen here.
Yep.
Mpemba's the number 2 athlete in the country. Notre Dame looking at him as either a Viper or a Rover. Monroe Freeling, 4-star offensive tackle who, fingers crossed, we're hoping Greg Gladkey gets to see tomorrow.
Yeah, weather is going to might be a problem, but
yeah. Caden Fegan, recently Rivals put him as a 4-star. He's a running back recruit. Of course, Carnell Tate, wide receiver, Dante Moore, quarterback, all these top 100 players visiting Notre Dame. Now we're going to look at Dante Moore here from the Columbus Under Armour camp that I saw that earlier this year. It was a really impressive group of recruits. And you got to remember, Cincinnati wasn't even supposed to be the biggest weekend. And it's not, from what I'm reporting over at blueandgold.com. That USC weekend and then UNC is looking really good. So, I if you're a Notre Dame fan, I mean, you can't ask for much bigger weekends than what Notre Dame had. So, really good stuff there by the staff.
Yeah, I know you've had a chance to talk to almost all of those elite guys who made campus this weekend. But what was your takeaway from another receiver who I love on film and plays for IMG, Carnell Tate?
Yeah, Carnell Tate, number 68 overall player in the country, number 8 wide receiver from Chicago Marist, transferred to Bradenton IMG Academy down in Florida in the off season. see FutureCast picks in 88% right now for Ohio State, but this recruitment is, got a long way to go. Actually, tomorrow Tate was originally he was going to commit. It was going to likely be between the Buckeyes and Fighting Irish, but
Yeah.
decided to push that back. Now he's talking about taking spring official visits, and like Greg mentioned, I spoke to Tate, so you can find this article at blueandgold.com. But big takeaway for me was like he and Dante Moore might be a package deal. Like they really might want to play together, and they're talking about it at the next level. Those two and Tommy Reese, just like really close group. Like they FaceTime together, the three of them. They all were together for Notre Dame's cookout recruiting event at the end of July when they were all on campus, of course, just this past Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you're Tommy Reese, this is huge. I mean, you got arguably your top quarterback target on the board. I think you can make the argument that Carnell Tate's the top receiver on the 2023
Makes
board.
sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, they're both going to be very tough gets. I could easily see them going 0 for 2 here, but you could also see them go 2-0.
Yeah, if you're talking about a package deal, you know that often doesn't pan out. But where is Ohio State with even Dante Moore? I mean, if you figure that maybe if they're a package deal, Notre Dame is in good shape.
Yeah, so hashtag follow the visits, Greg. That's
Yeah.
my mantra. So when you look at Tate, he's visited Notre Dame 5 times now. Going back to the spring, he took a self-guided tour, visited Notre Dame 3 times in June, and then of course this past weekend, Notre Dame is closer to Chicago, where he was often with his family than Columbus is. But he's also visited Ohio State a couple times, so probably will get back there this fall. So neck and neck there from just a visit standpoint. As far as Dante Moore, I believe he did go over there in the summer, but he's visited Notre Dame 3 times now, end of June, end of July, and then October 2nd. And so visited Penn State now, Michigan State, Michigan. I think those are the 4 main schools to keep an eye on for Dante Moore, at least right now. And then I know he's looking at some schools like Florida State and some others down south. But to me, he's going to end up somewhere in the Big Ten footprint, Midwest, Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, Michigan State, seeming to be the top contenders. I don't know how hard Ohio State is pushing or involved. So we'll have to see on that one, Greg.
Quick question from David Knight, and just on top of what we're already talking about. If ND were able to land Dante Moore, what happens in the QB room? Just a reminder, Dante Moore is just a junior, so that QB room, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 24 months or 22 months. But it is an interesting question because when you get a high-profile kid, you always think about, well, what about the guys already on campus?
I mean, my answer to that is you're just ecstatic. I mean, if you're a
Yeah.
fan or a coach, you're a receiver or offensive lineman or anybody, you're just fired up. And then that builds, that 2023 recruiting class. But okay, specifically what happens in the quarterback room? Do you not need a second quarterback in 2022 now? Like, do you feel that strongly about the commitment? What's the timing of Like, are we talking Dante Moore commits tomorrow or in January? Because there's what happens on the field for Notre Dame. There's just so many other items of information I would need to properly give an opinion. Because look, Greg, if Jack Cohn's going to be gone after the season, right? He's exhausting his eligibility,
Right.
You'll bring back Ron Paulus. Obviously, he's still on scholarship, but don't figure that he's going to be in the thick of the competition next year.
Yeah.
Brendan Clark,
he hadn't played football in so long.
I would assume. I mean, what, he played some token snaps in 2019.
Yeah.
Or
I
he
actually
did.
liked him out of high school too.
He got in a little bit in 2020. Yeah, before he was hurt. But yeah, some token snaps 2019, 2020. I would say that it's more likely that he transfers than not at this point. Never say never. What about Drew Pine? Like, does he go after the season? If it's Tyler Buckner is the guy and it's clear going into next season, what do guys like Drew Pine and Brendan Clark do? So with all of that in mind, landing a top of the board, borderline 5-star recruit at quarterback in 2023 would be monstrous.
Yeah, you always want to have what, four scholarship quarterbacks in the room if you can, and with the ease of the transfer portal in terms of being able to leave, that makes it hard. You're gonna see, I think you're going to see a lot more of teams, elite teams, taking two guys, maybe three every 2 years as opposed to one every year.
Yeah, and if Notre Dame takes 2 in this current cycle, it'll be 4 in 2 years with Buckner, Paulus in 2021, and then Angeli and blank quarterback. So, yeah, I don't like 4 quarterbacks. Like Notre Dame might be able to have that next year because Paulus is you would assume is just going to be there, and he technically counts. But to me, I feel like and no disrespect is intended towards Ron Paulus, but I felt like it was a really smart take just to have a
Yeah,
body there. He's Ron Paulus is not going anywhere. Like he bleeds blue and gold. He's going to be at Notre Dame for 4 years, if not 5 years. So that just made a lot of sense to me. And heck, maybe he does develop and becomes a starter someday at Notre Dame. So, but 4 quarterbacks, yeah, I feel like it's going to be more like 3 every year. But again, with Paulus, might be 4.
please hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That'll allow you to make some comments. We are for sale. You can drop us a super chat as well.
Yeah.
We're willing to take your questions. That would be lovely. Mike, I want to keep on the 2023 topic because you have to have great defense to win championships. You got to be able to defend the edges. You need big guys. Notre Dame had 2 of them on campus. And I know you talked to them. I just want to go more into Sonny Styles, more into Drake Bowen. But Sonny Styles, I mean, number 6 player overall in the country, and he's a phenomenal player.
I mean, I'd been saying this since back in January, the day Marcus Freeman got hired. I was like, look, the longer I've been doing this profession, Greg, the more you realize that like you don't know anything. Like you don't know how long Marcus Freeman's going to be at Notre Dame. Like you don't know if he just has a phenomenal season in 2021 as defensive coordinator and then Nick Saban retired. Like you just don't know what can
Right.
happen. To say like, oh, Marcus Freeman's definitely going to be here for 3 years. You can't say that. Like Marcus couldn't even say that. I interviewed Marcus over the summer. He couldn't even give anything definitive on something like that. So kind of a long way to say Notre Dame is getting its money's worth out of Marcus Freeman already. Like the 2022 defensive back class and the defensive class in general is very good. And then the head start they've had on 2023, I mean, it's been superb. You already got your top 2 defensive line targets. I mentioned earlier, like with Dell Alexander in 2022 receiver recruiting, like tell me, Dell, your top receiver targets. I feel like he would say CJ and Tobias. Can't speak for him. I'm just, giving you my opinion, what he would say. I think if you talk to Elston and say, hey, who are your top D-line targets for 2023? Keon Keeley, Viper, Brent Vernon, strong side defensive end. Big end now is what they call it. But superb there. Elston gets a ton of credit. You got to give Freeman a little credit as well. Look at linebackers: Drake Bowen, Sonny Styles. Seems like Notre Dame is, at worst, top 2 for both of those guys. Getting a look at Bowen here on film. There's other linebacker targets. Tamir Robinson. They just offered a young man out of Pennsylvania yesterday. Like ton of really good linebacker prospects, and then the defensive backboard in 2023. It seems like every year since I've been covering Notre Dame, my first year was 2020. Like every class from 2020 to 21 to 22 and now 23, it's getting better every single year. And we're not talking about Notre Dame defensive back recruiting being the weak link anymore. When you look at this Notre Dame team right now, the secondary is not the problem. And I think it's just going to keep getting better. Kyle Hamilton is just kind of put recruits on notice. A lot of kids like see Notre Dame as like this a defensive back school in a way because of Kyle Hamilton and the amount of swagger that he plays with on the football field. And you look at 2023 DBs, Justin Rhett, top 100 DB from Vegas, who I'll be seeing next week. Christian Gray, 4-star corner from St. Louis, who I had some scoop on at blueandgold.com this week. Malik Muhammad from Dallas, another top 100. It's a deep board yeah, Marcus Freeman and those guys really have done a nice job early on. And so many of them, Greg, have visited campus. They've
Yeah.
had them multiple times over the summer. So many of those
Follow the
guys
visits.
follow the visits,
Yeah.
baby. Yeah, I mean, October alone, I mean, I think Notre Dame's going to have basically all of their top targets on defense visit campus. It's really impressive.
Awesome. Before we get to the next question, David Knight asked us if we remember Tom Clements. He points out he's in the early 70s. I don't have that much gray hair, do I? Like, I was born in 1980, Mr. Knight. But yeah, I mean, if I never saw Tom Clements, obviously, on TV, but certainly known throughout Irish lore as one of the most athletic and accomplished quarterbacks in Notre Dame history. Kai S. brought up an interesting question, Mike, because I know you're addressing this later in the fall. He just wants to know, he wants an update on Anthony Lucas, and I think you got maybe some plans to go see him.
Yeah, in November. Yeah, I'll be out there. We figured Greg, we were talking about that trip. Like, hey, I've never been out to Phoenix, so going out there, and
Yeah.
there's a number of Notre Dame targets in Arizona. So we'll be seeing a few guys. Also got Benjamin Morrison out there, some 2023 recruits. But Anthony Lucas, Kai, yeah, still in play, very much in play. I've reported at blueandgold.com that he will be on campus for the USC game. That will be on his own dime because he took an official visit in June. So Anthony Lucas still very much in play.
Pavin or Paven B asks, who do you think will be the next commit in the 2022 class?
Oh man, these questions.
I know the most common question there is: who's the next commit?
Who's next to commit? I mean, still got some more work to do at receiver, offensive line, and then D line, and then potentially Xavier Wonka. Looks like possibly the last defensive back target left. Also, Austin Osbury from New Orleans area or Baton Rouge. I don't know. I don't. There's no one that really jumps to the top of my mind, Greg. Um,
Right.
I would maybe say an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Can they land Billy Schroth? I don't know. I don't have a great answer. No one jumps to my mind as like a super close play because most of those kids committed over the summer. Like their timeline was, let's commit over the summer or stretch this thing out until All-American Bowl. Like I think Wonkpa's going to be late in the process. Hero Kanu, Anthony Lucas, all these guys talk about All-American Bowl. And then you're looking at receivers and maybe a second quarterback, but we just don't really know who those guys might be at this point. So,
Yeah.
Brandon's question.
I'll put that up again. You had a couple questions come through on Hirokanu, so good.
I think right now, Brandon, if Lucas and Kanu were both to commit, I think Notre Dame would take both of them. Heck yeah, I think they would.
Yeah, big defensive
Good
line.
problem to have.
Yeah, you can't have too many of those. Absolutely, I think you gotta go with it. One question from our board. It's not really more of a statement, but I'll turn it to a question from John Salva. Wanted to know about Xavier Wonka out of Iowa, another really highly rated player. What are your thoughts on where the Irish stand?
Well, he put out his top 3 this past weekend. Appreciate the question, John, or statement. Iowa, Notre Dame, Ohio State. And, so much of the talk over the summer was Ohio State is the team to beat. And can Notre Dame make up ground? Well, it's kind of shifted. Like it felt like the pecking order was Ohio State, Notre Dame, Iowa. I think 1 and 3 have flipped. I think it's Iowa, Notre Dame, Ohio State in that order right now. Things can change, but Iowa's just done such a phenomenal job recruiting him. He's officially visiting this weekend. The Hawkeyes are off to such a great start to this season. I can't say I've watched a snap of them, but they're a top 5 team right now, Greg, I believe. So Notre Dame, when you have a national recruiting base, you recruit a lot of kids who it's like their final 2 is in-state U or Notre Dame. And it's tough to pull those kids out of, in-state U. Major Everhart with TCU, like kid wanted to be near home. Like I get it. So Notre Dame's kind of got to overcome that with Wonka. So it's like, yeah, they overcame Ohio State in my opinion, but then comes Iowa. So still a battle though. He's visiting for the USC game. Like I'm sure half the recruits I'll be asked about, I will say, visiting for the USC game. All those
Yeah.
details at blueandgold.com on our message board, master visitor list I have pinned at the top of our board where I'm updating the visitors. So, yeah,
We'll keep you in
still,
our prayers for USC week, and I know that that's a big thing.
uh,
Another thing to point out is they have a lot of commits coming in that weekend, so that's definitely the one where they seem to be Notre Dame seems to be kind of staging like, commits in your recruits help recruit other recruits, right? And so
yeah,
you got quite an impressive list, but you got the two linebackers from Michigan and Joshua Burnham, Nolan Ziegler. You got Tuli Halamaka out of California is supposed to come all the way in. Cedric Irvin, Tobias Merriweather, Eli Raridan. So I mean, those are big because those targets you have, right, Mike, and they start to get a feel for if they were to go to Notre Dame, like the type of personalities that they're going to be around.
yeah, yeah. I will say, I feel like the pandemic has halted some of the unity. Like I remember back to Drew Pine's recruiting class in 2020, that USC weekend, like all of the commits were there, all the top targets, and like that was such a huge deal, the amount that they all bonded together.
Yeah,
But I feel like a lot of these kids just kind of know each other from social media now.
yeah.
So it's kind of like meeting each other for the first time. So I understand where you're coming from. I agree with you, but I don't feel like it's as strong as the thing that has been in years past.
Andres asked just for fun. I think everyone's having this question just for fun because the Mannings don't seem to give away too much about what's going on with Arch's recruitment. But he asked if Arch is coming to Notre Dame to bring us into our next championship years. Uncle Peyton has huge pull in Indiana after all he did with the Colts. What do you think about that? Almost kind of like get the best player and then also Notre Dame's already done really well with in-state recruiting, but and Indiana players have been really good to Notre Dame. But I like the thought.
Unfortunately, Manning family is down in Louisiana. So yeah, Peyton has done a phenomenal in Indianapolis. Yeah, as far as Arch Manning and Notre Dame, I haven't heard anything new. Fighting Irish have always been in contact with them. It seems like Notre Dame is like in that, depending on how you look on it, tier 2 or tier 3,
Yeah.
like schools he wants to visit. You got your Ole Miss, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, some of the schools that seem to be at the top for him. And then below that, there's like Ohio State, Notre Dame. I've heard Stanford. That's kind of like yeah, we'll get out there, but they haven't yet. Over the summer, Joe Theismann said on a random podcast that Arch Manning visited Notre Dame. But he hadn't confirmed that. That was weird. But yeah, if Arch Manning visits Notre Dame, I feel like Greg, we will hire a photographer just to take pictures of Arch Manning the entire time. Like it's such a crazy thing. Like Greg, all your years, covering recruiting and mine, combined, we got what 25 years. Like
Yeah.
Arch Manning's recruitment feels like a Zion Williamson or like a LeBron James, like a big time number one player basketball recruit. Like it
Yeah.
feels like Arch Manning visiting Georgia for a weekend is going to make like Fox News or CNN like it's like a huge deal anytime he does anything.
Yeah, I mean, the last quarterback that I would say was close to as big of a name early on. Well, Jimmy Clausen was a pretty big name early on, but there was also the feeling that it was either going to be Notre Dame or USC, and then it started go. Another kid that didn't talk too much about recruiting, by the way, during the process, but and then he made a pretty early commitment for those days standards to Notre Dame, so he didn't have quite the drama where you seem to have a little bit more of a intrigue with Arch Manning just because there's more fan bases that are holding on to hope. So, but hey, you and I talked about within the last couple of weeks, maybe we go see Amari and Walker get on the road, see if we just fit in a game with Arch Manning in it.
Well, how about this? I think it's for USC week, and I actually just booked a trip elsewhere. But Arch Manning versus Keon Keeley is that weekend.
Yeah.
Berkeley Prep, Tampa, and Keeley go out to New Orleans to play Isidore Newman. I was thinking about it, but yeah, no, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, I would say that you have the approval from anyone to go do that. That'd be worth it. Get on that plane, Mike Singer.
All right. Well, I booked the Naples, but now I'm thinking about a crap. Maybe I should have done that one. We'll see. We'll talk.
Before we get to our next questions, David Knight wants me to have a stage name. That's pretty funny. I'm open to that. But anyway, let's talk just a little bit about our plans going forward here, Mike. Just some travel. I mean, you mentioned that if the weather permitting, we're having some potential severe weather in the southeast for tomorrow, but we'll go try and check out Monroe Freeland. I know you've got it on the bye week. We're going to go do some stuff. I'll be up in the Baltimore, Washington area to see Aiden Gobiara. I don't know if I'm butchering that name, but long time
Gobira.
long time Notre Dame commit. That's the plan, and then there's tons of Saturday games in the Washington D.C. area, and we'll just pick the best one to do it. So we got that to look forward to. What are in your plans, Mike?
Yeah. Are you seeing Jason Moore when you're up there?
That's the plan.
Tackle?
That's what I'm thinking.
Samatha?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that kid's a freak.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great visit. Yeah, so as far as tomorrow, I'm still undecided. It's either Terrence Love, who's a four-star safety target in the Atlanta area, or it's take my wife and my mother-in-law out to dinner. My mother-in-law's coming into town, so
I
I'm
think you
not
should go.
sure.
You should go with the latter. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. You got to build up some stock for because in the spring, in the winter, in the spring, then you have to answer questions like, why are 7-7s on sevens important? Or like camps, they're not even in pads. Why do you have to go watch that? Which are, I mean, might be valid questions, but
dude. Yeah. I love 7-on-7s. They're great. 7-on-7 tournaments, you can see like 15 targets. But the next week, I'm going to Vegas, fly out on a Wednesday, return home on Saturday. So it's half work, half pleasure. We'll be going to the Bishop Gorman game, seeing Justin Rhett, top cornerback target for Notre Dame in 2023. And make sure you guys are dropping your questions, by the
yep.
way. We'll continue to get to those and drop super chat, hit that thumbs up. And then Zachariah Branch is a receiver target for Notre Dame in 2023. Cyrus Moss officially visited Notre Dame over the summer, a 2022 defensive end recruit, trending away from Notre Dame, though. So I don't foresee myself writing much about Moss from that visit. But Nico Fertitta, former Notre Dame defensive back and special teamer, he is the defensive backs coach at Bishop Gorman. So looking
Yeah.
forward to meeting Nico in person.
That'll be interesting to have the Irish out there playing BYU too, and an opportunity to kind of brand themselves in front of a school at Bishop Gorman that produces kids every year. But other than Fertitta, I'm not sure if Notre Dame's ever gotten another player out of Bishop Gorman. I'm sure they have, but nothing comes to mind.
Rip Luke's emoji. I would be calling Lou right now.
Yeah. Um, Give me an update on Steve Angeli. I know you follow him closely. He's been putting up awesome numbers. You always forget about the guys you have committed. And there's this with Walker Howard, that news last week of him. He was planning on visiting, and this feeling that maybe Notre Dame will take two either in this year or next year. Like, how's Steve Angeli doing with all that?
Yeah. So I had a little bit of an update on that at blueandgold.com in Lucky Charms last night. So our premium subscribers got that news yesterday. But look, I'll kind of go back a little bit for some context on Steve. When he was a sophomore in high school, he entered that season armed with offers from Penn State and Ohio State and Rutgers. Like the kid was the next big thing out of the state of New Jersey, the golden child. Like he's a big deal. And he was not the starter as a sophomore. They went with the returning starter at quarterback who was there as a junior. So they went with the senior captain. Basically used Steve as like a Tyler Buckner has been used this year, just kind of in some packages. There you go, Ryan
We've
Stanley. Yep.
forgotten an
That's
NFL
a big
pro
one. Yes.
that went to the school.
Um,
That's my
so
bad.
yeah,
That's my bad,
yeah,
by the way. We're even in that might have been even a year or two before your time.
yeah. That was before I started
Yeah,
covering
I'll take
recruiting.
the blame for that. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So on Steve, he's gone through this kind of thing before, like that people doubt him and like rivals dropped him from a 4 to a 3 after his very strong off season. Like, didn't get invited to the Elite 11. Like, the kid has, like, I feel like he's kind of gotten a bad shake on some of this stuff. So, like, Notre Dame taking potentially a second quarterback in the 2022 class, I feel like this crap doesn't phase him. Like, like he's not phased. Like, my favorite thing about Drew Pine is, like, the kids just, like, some of these kids, I feel confident saying, like, the moment's not too big for some of these kids. Steve Angeli, I don't feel like he's going to be worried about it.
Yeah,
Really, we're not concerned.
we also missed Alize Mack, just so you know. I've actually never been to Bishop Gorman.
What?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I'm trying to think of if I've ever even been to Vegas for like a football event, because we've always had and to answer someone's question that posted on the board, they're asking if I work for Rivals or just BGI. Now I work exclusively for blueandgold.com. And but yeah, Rivals, because we've always had a videographer on the West Coast. So unless there was an event that required 2 videographers, we would just send our resource in Los Angeles, David Barry, who does a great job, has been in LA for 8-9 years. So he's been there a lot. I just have never been there. So
Brandon, we love having Greg on here too. He's doing a great job. Glad to have him at Blue and Gold. Yeah.
Let's get back to Austin's question. I know we touched upon this a little bit, but are Sonny Styles and Drake Bowen locks? I think that's probably aggressive.
I mean, who would you say is the most solid commit in the 2022 class for Notre Dame? Like, would it be Steve or, like, probably Joey Tanona, right? Like,
Yeah.
Grew up a diehard Notre Dame fan. He's from Indy. Like, if you ask me if he's a lock, like, if you're saying lock, it's like, I mean,
everyone knows they're a silent commit and they're already recruiting for Notre Dame, which I don't think is the case.
If a nuclear explosion went off and destroyed the entire country, like, is that kid still going to Notre Dame? Like, that's what is a lock. I mean, Sonny Styles and Drake Bowen not even commit. Like, I get your question, like, how confident do I feel? But I don't like the term lock. Like, it's not my style. But in terms of Bowen, I've got a future cast pick in. Feel really good about it. He visited for the Cincinnati game. He's visiting for USC. He's visiting for North Carolina. Notre Dame selling the baseball angle really well. So I feel like Notre Dame is in the driver's seat for Drake Bowen, and I think they're on a collision course for a commitment from him. So as Sonny Styles, I could see him landing at any school in his top 5. Like, that dude is, a super high academic kid, loves Notre Dame. There's also the Ohio State ties with his dad playing there. And I've been saying for a while on Sonny, like, so many people are like, Notre Dame with your brother, Ohio State, your backyard where your dad played. I feel like he's just going to be like, screw that. I'm going to Florida, or I'm going to Clemson. Those schools are in his top 5, along with Florida, Ole Miss, Clemson, Notre Dame, Ohio State. That's his group. So I would not consider Sonny Styles anything close to a lock right now, but sources in South Bend do feel, after each visit, more optimistic.
I don't think any of these guys are in play here, but TJ Shanahan, I mean, there's some big names here, offensive linemen. Go ahead, Mike. I think the answer is no, though.
Yeah, nothing really on these guys. I've actually checked in with all of them. Not that I've got responses from all of them recently, but I've tried to reach out to them. Mm-hmm. Shanahan, probably doubtful. Harris Sewell, maybe. I could see him ending up on the visitor list for USC and North Carolina. Very interested in Notre Dame. Had a good visit over the summer. Samson Okunlola up in the Northeast, checked in with him. No plans to visit. Some of these kids play on Saturdays, so how are they supposed to take visits? Caden Green, haven't heard anything back there, but also wouldn't be surprised if he sees Notre Dame. He had a really good visit in June.
I also think the official visit thing in spring has just made it easier on recruits to, I mean, the recruiting cycle's moved up, right? But like, when you think about kids that they play a Friday night game and then they get on a plane at 6 a.m. in the morning, and then they're on an official visit where the school is showing them so much stuff and meetings and all this. I mean, I know 17-year-old kids are supposed to have a lot of energy, but those official visits in some way have got to be got to be exhausting in the fall.
Yeah, Hiro Kanu, defensive lineman from California, he's doing like 5 straight weekends of
Oh,
in-season official visits. Like I get if you're on a bye week or you can miss school on Monday or something like, but leaving sometimes, Friday night, that I've seen that before. Kids, catch a super late red eye or and do it that way, or Saturday morning 5 a.m. flight. Like, no, 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 Greg.
yeah. Brandon's a little bit disappointed in your update on TJ Shanahan. I don't really know where he stands actually, but it's definitely nice to see Notre Dame getting down to Florida. I think they've done a good job so far in the 2023 class. It's just not with a big time lineman.
He transferred out to Austin Westlake.
Oh, that's right. That's
Uh,
right.
Drew Brees, former high school. Yeah, nothing. I'll check in with him, Brandon. Brandon's a blue and gold subscriber, so you know where you can reach me very easily, Brandon. Definitely appreciate the question.
Mike up in Roswell, other side of Atlanta from where you reside. How are things going with Justice Haynes?
Yep, still visiting for the USC game. Notre Dame's, of course, got a 2023 running back commitment from Cedric Irvin Jr. I believe they will take 2 in 2023, and Haynes, I believe he's the number 17 player in that class, the top running back in the country per Rivals. Notre Dame. Sorry, Greg, I'm holding off a yawn here. This is
Yeah, no,
when we go live.
it's in season, man. It's you are
Dude, I
excused.
still got so much crap to do for our magazine and stuff tonight. Got to finish up Lucky Charms for a website, but sorry, I'm like holding off a yawn. But yeah, love Justice Haynes tape as well. Really good player. Got to see him in late August. Big time. So yeah, we'll visit for that USC game, and yeah, Notre Dame will be tough to beat out Georgia and Alabama and Clemson and all those Southern schools, but Notre Dame battle in there.
Kai S. and David Knight essentially just asked the same thing. So I'll just go with Kai's question here. How does the Quinn criticism, he's speaking of Notre Dame coach Jeff Quinn, how does the Quinn criticism affect the OL recruiting?
Doesn't it? Doesn't. I mean, if there started to be reports that Quinn was, getting fired or that, like, then there would be concern. But even then, Greg, I've covered, so many coaching changes over the year that, like, even if like a head coach, it's reported that he's leaving, the kids are like, no, that's not true. Like,
Yeah.
I don't believe it. So Quinn criticism, his status, nah, no, nothing. There's, no, that Quinn criticism affects fans. Like that's a
Yeah.
fan thing and a media thing. That does not spill into recruits. Yeah, they don't care about that. It's basically what I go back to when a kid is on a visit. Let's just say Notre Dame, Cincinnati. The Notre Dame offensive line doesn't have a great performance. Jeff Quinn can go back to that offensive line recruit who was there and say, "That's why we need you.
Mhm.
That's why we need you at Notre Dame." And then if the O-line looks great against the team, Quinn could go back and say, why don't you come be a part of this? I mean, you just have to be a good salesman as a recruiter.
We had a question earlier, and I'm sorry I missed it, but someone asked about Taka Curtis in Louisiana. He's a 2023 prospect. I don't recall anything
Got
about
nothing. Yeah, hasn't visited yet.
here
Notre
it is.
Dame offered him in the spring. Yeah, he's a really good looking player, but
Yeah.
I don't think that Notre Dame has been able to make much move and hasn't come up in any conversations with sources.
I think he's like Shreveport area. But I don't think he's a New Orleans kid. If I
Many
yeah.
from many Louisiana. I don't know where that is, but I think that's his high school.
I think it's I'm almost positive it's closer to Texas than it is New Orleans. So,
Okay.
alrighty, let's see what Austin Smith has here. Okay, we'll go on to the team side. He wants to know if I just saw a question. Throw it in there. Um, Unrelated to recruiting, if Notre Dame's offense struggles all season, is a new offensive coordinator possible? Is someone like Brian Hartley ready for that? What do you think? You got to talk
Oh my
coaches
god.
now. I don't know.
Oh, I don't think
Speculating on something that yeah, Notre Dame's offense has struggled this year some, but that's I don't think Tommy Rees's job is in any sort of trouble right now at all.
no. No, I mean,
Coaching
he,
changes happen all the time. Though. People do. I mean,
that's that's where I was going with this. Look, you don't know, like I mentioned earlier with Marcus Freeman, for those who were with us, earlier in the show, like you don't know what could happen that could open up for Marcus Freeman, like some head coaching job. I'll say the same thing with Tommy Reese. Like he's been in the NFL, like he spent some time with the Chargers. Does he prefer the NFL over college, or does he really want to stick this out and become the next Notre Dame head coach? I don't know. So could he go? You can't rule it out. Like I said, there's no locks in this stuff. Like anything can happen. So while I think it's not likely he's gone, I do feel like look, Greg, after last season, there were 0 offensive staff changes.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen 2 years in a row.
Right.
I mean, someone's going to go. And there's no one I'm going to like point at and be like, he's the one who's going, but just, you look at history and just the probability of it, someone's going to leave.
Yeah, I think Tommy Reese is actually getting a good season of like on the job train. Like, how do you handle when your offensive line is in turmoil? I mean, how do you game plan? How do you keep the ball moving? I mean, that's going to pay dividends down the road as an offensive coordinator. He otherwise has had the luxury of an elite offensive line, and if you're going to be a coordinator on either side of the ball, you're going to be, unless you're a coordinator for Alabama, you're going to deal with seasons where your personnel is an issue. So I kind of like it. I mean, it stinks so far this year that the offense is kind of on a roadblock because of the offensive line play, but I think that it could pay dividends down the road, both for Coach Reese and the Notre Dame offense in general. So,
Sure.
Well, Mike, you think that's it? You got any more?
I mean, yeah, I'm scrolling through these questions just like you are. I think we can.
Someone asked
tap
if I was
out.
going to continue doing the show. Yes, that's the plan. Yes, I'll keep doing the show with Mike Singer. So they're just wondering if I was going to continue doing the show, if I was making a guest appearance, like Aaron Rodgers on Jeopardy, for example.
Oh yeah, no, this is this is me and Greg every Thursday night. That's what we're planning. We're going recruiting. Unless Greg or unless one of us is out on the road doing something, yeah, we're
or like a dead period where there's really nothing to report.
Oh no, dude,
Mike, you're an all right looking guy, but I don't want to stare at you for 45 minutes talking about
every single Thursday.
Yeah, you have to mix in a little bit of golf at least,
dude. In recruiting, there's no dead periods, dude. Like
that's true.
I find stuff to write about every single day on recruiting, every single day of the year, maybe except for Christmas. That's the one day. And Thanksgiving, I don't write something, but otherwise, I find something on recruiting. So, yeah, we'll keep it going.
Here we got a good one that we both speak to, just because this is new. I saw Jaylen Brown last week. Mike, let me get your feel first off on his recruitment.
Yeah, he was going to visit for that Cincinnati game. Wasn't able to make it up. Some last minute. Circumstance, so he had to cancel that. But I think Notre Dame has got as good of a shot as anybody right now for Jaylen Brown. And you think about Notre Dame potentially landing 2 top 100 recruits in the same class from Miami. You kidding me?
Yeah.
But there's not a ton of like Notre Dame profile schools in the southern part of the state. But there are 2 that come to mind. And Greg, you happen to see both of them on the same night.
Yeah, we should mention they both play for Gulliver Prep, Cedric Irvin Jr. and Jaylen Brown. So, I saw them last Friday. With a little bit of stormy weather that delayed it, but they both look good. We made the comp with Cedric Irvin to Darius Walker. That is not like a big kid or a burner, but just kind of a shifty, nifty runner that runs to space well, good vision, catches the ball well. Total Notre Dame kid, and then Mike, you mentioned just Jaylen Brown, how Notre Dame's in it, and I spoke to his dad. Both of them really nice people. I mean, there was a joy to talk to them, and they like Notre Dame. They like the idea of they like the Miami Hurricanes, but they really like the idea of going somewhere in the Midwest, playing football, kind of just branching out. So Notre Dame. It's early though. Jaylen didn't want to say favorites or anything like that, but he did acknowledge that he does like Notre Dame and does communicate with them a lot. We'll take on this question, Mr. Knight. Can Greg give us a little bit on his ND career? Yes. Someone asked earlier. I am a Notre Dame grad.
No, they said you look like a Notre Dame grad. That's a huge compliment.
So, yeah. Well, maybe. Yes, I'm a Notre Dame.
I think.
Let's see. 2003. So it was Tyrone Willingham's first year. Was my senior year when they started. I think 8-0 and had one of those horrible losses to Boston College. And I lived in Dillon Hall. I think that's about everything. That's all you guys need to know. That was a
There you
long
go.
time ago. I didn't have any gray hair either. I had a couple of friends who started getting gray hair, but I have more gray hair than they do now. They started getting gray hair in college, and I made fun of them. And then now, who's laughing now? So another question here. Actually, this is good timing on this. Billy Schroth. I'm from Wisconsin, so Billy Schroth from Wisconsin. Is he a definite no-go with ND, or is he a Wisconsin lock?
Yeah, no locks in recruitments. And so he's I'll say he's definitely not a Wisconsin lock, and he's definitely not a no-go. If I'm throwing a lot of negatives in there, still in play.
Yeah.
Schroth will be in play for both schools until he makes a decision, and then even if he does, we'll see. I look, Greg. I initially wrote up an article late July of 2020, a commitment article for Schroth, just like waiting for it to happen. Like it was just like
Yeah. I see it
inevitable.
in the publishing dashboard.
Yeah, it's still there.
Still
It's like
there.
dated. Yeah, and I went in and edited a little bit in like the spring, just to kind of update some information. Like uh, it was very close to being a commitment for Notre Dame, and here we are. What 15 months later, and still waiting. It's been one of the more bizarre recruitments in that sense that he was like considered a quote unquote Notre Dame. I don't know what you want to call it, a silent commit or whatever, but it was for a while. And then he takes those official visits, and he said publicly to interviews at Rivals that like he was going to Notre Dame, and then took that official visit to Wisconsin. And when official visits happen, anything can happen. So
Yeah. I
still
think in the
waiting.
I
Go
think in
ahead.
the Rivals era, I might have the number wrong, but I know for sure Wisconsin has only lost one in-state offensive lineman ranked 4 stars or higher. They've gotten all but one of them. That was Ben Bredesen, who went to Michigan. I think it was 12 overall that have been 4 stars or higher in the Rivals era, and Wisconsin's gotten 11 of them. You look at they have 3 of them in the 2022 class, and they already got Joe Brunner. Carson Hinsman, their top 2 with Ohio State. I think they look good there. And then if they get Schroth, that's going to be a statement by Wisconsin. Like, because there was a time, like you said, it kind of felt like all 3 of those guys were not only going to leave the state, but Notre Dame really, really strong in the mix. And Wisconsin kind of flexing their muscle a little bit there.
Yeah, Greg, I did like a bold predictions article for Notre Dame
Uh,
recruiting. When I say bold,
I was shaking
I
my head.
mean bold. And I
Yeah.
didn't consult Greg on one of these takes.
Like, dude, Wisconsin's going to get at least 2 of those guys.
Yeah, I was like, Notre Dame's going to land all of them. And when you looked at them individually, it's like Brunner just fit a Notre Dame kid to me. Like I felt like he was going to pull a shocker. Like I just felt like Notre Dame has one of those every year.
Yeah.
Thought it was going to be Brunner. Hinsman, I still feel like Notre Dame could have gotten that commitment. Like I will, yeah, I feel like that one was very close for a while, and then didn't quite work out, and then Notre Dame went and got Ashton Craig from down in southeastern Indiana. And then with Schroth, here we are. I mean, Notre Dame was certainly very close to landing his commitment, and still is in the mix. So yes, it was a bad take, but yeah, it's not as ridiculous as it seems when you kind of go through all of them. But the parlay of the 3, yeah, not my best bold prediction, but at least I put bold, and it wasn't like a future cast. So
Well, it wasn't because of your reporting. I know you did the legwork on it and had reason to feel good about it. But yeah, that Wisconsin does. One of the reasons why they have had so much success is when they do, and the high school football talent's not great in Wisconsin. I played high school football in Wisconsin. Believe me, it's not great. Um, they do when they have good players in their state. They do as good as anyone in the country in keeping them in state and in their program. So I remember Josh Oglesby back in the day was a 5-star. He ended up hurting his knee, I think, freshman year at Wisconsin. Still had a pretty good career, but was like a Notre Dame type kid all the way. I think some of our older recruiting fans remember him. He was either a class of 2006 or 2007, but he was an awesome kid. And Milwaukee area, St. Francis High School, and felt Notre Dame all the way. And he was like, "No, I'm Wisconsin. Of course, Wisconsin. I'm an offensive lineman from Wisconsin. We go to Wisconsin." So that's that. So how about one more question, Mike? What do you think?
Yeah, actually, we got two more. Let's just take the last two about the offensive linemen. We talked
Okay.
about Schroth, so we'll talk about the other two.
Okay, let's do. I'll look for the other one, but I see this one. What is the best case scenario to end the 2022 class? Zach Rice.
Yeah, there's a few questions up. Someone asked about Emile Wagner, but yeah, as far as the offensive line class, Notre Dame would be ecstatic to land him. There was some really good momentum on the O line board, like when he visited, with potentially getting him, but it just seems like North Carolina or Virginia. If Notre Dame's gonna land Zach Rice, I think they'll need to get him back on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Doubt that happens this fall. As far as best case scenario to end 2022 class, how about you get Nicholas Singleton? Like, let's just say, like, dream scenario, like best case. Why is the Penn State's head coach's name is
James Franklin.
escaping? Franklin.
Yeah.
Franklin takes the USC job. Notre Dame flips Caden Saunders, receiver.
Yeah.
Nicholas Singleton, running back, and Drew Shelton, offensive tackle. Flips all of them from Penn State. How about even going 4-for-4 and they bring in Drew Lara as the second quarterback in the 2022 class? So there you're done with offense, and then defensively they land Lucas, the big end, and then Xavier Wonka. That would be like top 3 class in the country, national championship caliber class. Like, that would be nuts. The chances of that happening, if Notre Dame lands like one of those prospects, I think you're excited.
Yeah.
Let alone 6. Don't do a bold prediction that Notre Dame lands all 6 of those guys, because you will be wrong.
Here's the Emile Wagner question. I put up someone else's comment for a while. I'm sorry. It's probably out of context, but Emile Wagner from the Dayton area, correct?
Yep.
Where does Notre Dame stand there? I haven't seen a lot on him lately.
Yeah. I went to see him a few weeks ago, and I was talking to his high school head coach, who actually was an assistant coach at Huber Heights Wayne when Marcus Sherman and Mike Mickens were in high school. Roosevelt Mooks is his name. And I asked him this question. I said, like, do you think he can fill out? And he said that they run their guys so much that, like, that is their biggest thing, is conditioning. So
Yeah.
those kids are all pretty, like, their offensive linemen are all fairly on that side. Like, even Josh Padilla, the 2023 offensive lineman, I think that he is below what he, probably could be right now.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame's recruiting Padilla pretty hard. So yeah, I don't. The head coach didn't. Mooks. I asked him that question again, and he did not have any concerns. And then is Notre Dame going hard after him? The last time I checked in with some sources in South Bend, the answer was yes, and he'll be visiting soon as well.
Yeah, to me, he's like a left tackle, and you gotta have guys like that if you're gonna have a full, complete offensive line. Let's go back to your Drew Lara. I think Notre Dame fans would still be interested in hearing about him. And you saw him. I went through all your video, and that's good football up there. I lived in Ohio and lived in Cleveland for 3 years, and just the quality of the coaching and the programs are good. I was shocked to see Medina dispose of Mentor like that in Mentor's house. Medina's who Drew Lara plays for.
Right. Yeah, it's supposed to be a down year for Mentor. But yeah, it was domination. They scored at ease. Brent Vernon, Notre Dame's defensive end commit, really, he struggled. He just did. Like, they had a really good game plan for him, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Double and triple teaming when they did have allow Vernon to go one-on-one. They would typically move Alar to that other side. And then they would only bring 3 guys a lot of the time, and Alar can just dice them up. So to me, they needed to pressure Alar to, win that game, and they just didn't do that. But I'm also not a football coach. Did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But yeah, Alar's the real deal. I've been skeptical on him because you see so much like of these like crazy sidearm passes and like just everyone trying to be Patrick Mahomes. I just kind of roll my eyes, but then you see him, and yeah, the kid's got a really high upside.
Yeah.
So and I had already known that, but it was the floor that I felt like was higher. Like the bust potential is not as big as I thought.
Yeah, he's I love the kid on film. I have not seen him in person, but I think he's as good as any quarterback in the country. But and I like Brent Vernon. Like Brent Vernon's just gonna get much of a chance to make plays. He's a
Yeah,
big kid that gets off the ball.
yeah.
I mean, he's gonna be fine. It's just
Oh,
you know,
oh yeah, he's gonna be fine. Like yeah, he is. Said this in our video earlier this week, Greg. Like he is just a throwback off like defensive lineman. Like he's not some viper who's wanting to drop back into coverage like so many defensive linemen are. Like no, he wants to eat you alive. Like he wants to pummel you. He is physical. He's a beast.
yeah,
But also a very nice kid.
yeah,
Big smile on his face after the game, thanked me for coming, and as nice as could be. And then he was pissed right afterwards when it went back to being pissed. But super nice kid. Um, so many people pegged him to Ohio State, Greg, but when you talk to him, he's 100% a Notre Dame kid.
yeah. Well, Mike, you're going to go out to dinner tomorrow night with your wife and mother-in-law. Don't go to a high school football game. Let's pray for good weather down in the Charleston area because I'd like to see Monroe Freeling.
Yep,
So
just visited Notre Dame this past
yeah,
weekend.
just
Yeah,
visited this past weekend. So I haven't got I emailed the AD like 2 hours ago. So that's actually not even official yet. So if someone from that community is somehow watching, I just contacted the school. So no promises on that. But anyway, let's wrap it on that, bud. It's been an hour. Yeah, like Mike said earlier, everyone, we're gonna try to do this every week, unless we just don't have anything to report, or like he said, we're out on the road covering events. There will be times where that happens. So make sure you subscribe to our channel, give us a like on this video, keep tuning in, tell all your Notre Dame friends, anyone that's interested in recruiting. We love the questions. We'll get to it as long as we have questions coming in. We'll do that. So appreciate the time, everyone, and we'll see you soon.